And I think if we can all come to the table, not with solutions, but with great problem definitions, let the experts solve the problems, I think a lot of things might accelerate in their development.
It's the same basic process and the same basic end result because I trusted them and I bought into the fact that I trusted them. That's what it's about.
Well, guess what? Both can do the job. The question is, which one, when you're signing on that paper, do you have more confidence is actually going to do it the right way the first time so that you can have the problem solved that you have?
I'm wondering how they're going to feel about that in a year and having all the connectivity to all the other things. There's got to be some happy medium. Today, we're talking with Dean Curtis, a guy who was literally in the room when the iPhone was about to change business mobile device usage. He was at Palm during the smartphone wars. Then he moved to Apple right as they were trying to crack the enterprise market.
And he asked the VP of iPhone at the time in his interview whether the lack of a physical keyboard would kill their chances in enterprise. The answer? I think we're going to be okay. Well, I think that's right. I mean, think about it today. There's not a single physical keyboard on a phone anymore.
That story is the perfect setup for one of our favorite themes. Customers don't actually know what they want. Dean trains his team on this. Don't let customers design features. Get them to tell you the problem they're trying to solve.
And he's got this great line about how Apple looked at the keyboard problem differently. Everyone else was asking, how do we make a better keyboard? Apple asked, why is this thing taking up half the device when you're not using it 95% of the time?
And then there's the California Highway Patrol story. Palm did a pilot with officers using mobile devices for license lookups. Every single device came back broken. Turns out the officers ran over them with their cars because nobody ever asked if they actually wanted the technology.
And that's the enterprise adoption problem in a nutshell. Not really a device problem. Companies buy software, they get excited, roll it out on Monday morning, and wonder why nobody uses it and why it's not gaining any kind of value.
Dean breaks down the 3 pillars most companies miss. Having the right stakeholders, including IT, marketing for brand, and someone responsible for training and readiness. Skip any of those and you're setting yourself up for failure.
We also get into the trust and confidence piece. He talks about how a plumber with a pen and paper doing napkin math versus one with polished iPad presentation creates completely different buying experiences. It's not about the technology. It's about whether the customer believes in the numbers you put in front of them and has confidence that you have it right for them.
And his take on AI is refreshing. He says the widely held belief that new technology ruins everything is just simply wrong. It just makes space for new possibilities. His line, AI rewards the curious.
So if you've ever wondered why your sales team resists new tools or why that software rollout flopped yet again, Dean's got the playbook for what actually works.
Let's get into it. Welcome to the Frictionless Experience, the podcast where we lay waste to digital friction. I'm Chuck Moxley.
And I'm Nick Paladino.
And joining us today is Dean Curtis, who has a tremendous background and a very heavy background in mobile. So we're going to be talking a lot about mobile adoption today. Dean, welcome.
Thanks so much for having me, guys. Appreciate the opportunity to chat with you and the audience today.
Now, you, as I mentioned, you are deeply rooted in mobile computing because you were at Palm during the early smartphone days and then transitioned over to Apple in 2008. Palm, we were laughing about this, but I worked in the .com, one of the .com crazy things out in the Bay Area in 1999. And Palm became standard issue. All employees had the Palms and stuff. But you know, there were so many limitations back there. It was really interesting. Tell us a little bit, just give us what that was like working at Palm and then sort of your transition to Apple.
Yeah, sure. The story goes back even 2 companies before that. So at Oracle, I was on a mobile focused team, and this is in the late 90s. And if you think about the world in the late 90s, mobile was, big backpacks with massive batteries and computers and big antennas sticking out of them. It wasn't really mobile friendly. And we were doing work trying to get Oracle databases synchronized to Palm Pilots. That led me to a smaller company that was more of an app dev shop and offered synchronization technology. Companies called IntelliSync. If you ever had a BlackBerry and you synchronized it with your Outlook or your Lotus Notes, that was our software typically that was doing that. And that led me to Palm. And we kind of take mobile for granted now because everyone has a mobile device or two or three on them at any one time, right? You have a smartwatch or you have a smartphone or anything like that. But at Palm at the time, we were competing against BlackBerry. That was the main mobile device of the day. And the mobile industry really exploded from that point where everyone was getting issued these things from your company. Chuck, everybody got one. And you're like, well, how do I use this thing? What are the use cases for it? And there were some app development platforms. There were some apps, but apps weren't really connected to anything. The mobile connectivity of those devices was not great. You typically connected them to a desktop to synchronize and then have some information with you on the go. It's pretty amazing how things have changed since that point.
I remember that desktop syncing. As soon as you said that, I'm like, oh, that's right. We had to sync it up. So funny how times have changed.
We used to, like, when you would go on a business trip, right? You'd print your directions from MapQuest and you would synchronize your stuff over to your iPod or your Palm Pilot so you could work disconnected.
100%. And I can't remember if it was the Palm or other smartphones that came out at that time where you could bump them to exchange business cards. That was like the hot thing to do back then. Hey, let me give you my business card.
There was a company that built an app called Bump, and they would use the accelerometer in the devices to tell when you bumped, and it would create a little ad hoc network, and you would communicate over that to share a contact card. That was revolutionary back in the day. I think we've come a long way.
Now, Dean, you transitioned from Palm to Apple right as they were trying to break into the enterprise market. Tell us about your, you in a prep call, you mentioned an interesting interview question the VP of iPhone gave you.
So the team that I was on at Palm, our goal was to take the Palm Trio, which was the smartphone of the day, the Trio 650 and the Palm Centro and those devices, and we were selling them through carrier channels into the business world. Palm was on tough times. They were starting to lag behind because the iPhone came out and they were getting a lot of pressure from BlackBerry, from Samsung in this market. And our entire team of enterprise people went from Palm over to Apple, except for me. I was still hanging on and I was the technical guy in the sales team. And they finally called me and said, listen, they went probably 9 months before I was there. And they said, listen, we're going hard into the enterprise now. We need someone with technical understanding of how these devices integrate into the corporate networks, because if you can't integrate into a corporate network, you're not going to win the business world. They were shiny toys that every executive wanted to use, but if it can't be used for real business, IT is not going to support them. So they needed someone with my expertise or knowledge to come over and support that go-to-market team. And I remember going to Apple headquarters and I'm sitting in the lobby in a nice suit and tie, totally out of place. Didn't realize that Apple was a place where you don't really wear suits and ties. So I go up into the C-suite and I'm sitting there and Eddie Q walks by and Steve Jobs walks by and I'm waiting to meet with the VP of iPhone because that's the team I would be joining. And I asked the question, the interview's going great. And he says at the end, like, any interview, any questions you have? And I asked him, I said, do you think the lack of a keyboard will inhibit or prohibit you from gaining access to the enterprise business with the iPhone? And he pauses and he looks at me and he says, I think we're going to be okay. And at that point in the interview, I think I had the opportunity to say, well, I think you're wrong, or debate him on it. And I simply said, if you think you're going to be okay, I think we'll be okay. And then a couple hours later, I heard from the hiring manager that I had been given the green flag, the thumbs up to move on and join the team.
I love talking about the iPhone keyboard because it proves the one thing that product people often forget is that your customers don't know what they want, always. And so if you think about the iPhone keyboard, no one was asking to get rid of the keyboard. No one said to themselves, like, this is going to be what I need. But in reality, once they had it in their hands and they said, hey, this is what I wanted. Now, all of a sudden, I mean, who has a keyboard on their phone? Anybody? I mean, I'm sure there are a few people do, but most people don't. And it's just good proof. And it's a good way to ground yourself to remember, while customer research does a lot for you, you're not necessarily going to innovate on customer research because your customers are frankly just trying to solve what's immediately in front of them. They don't know how to solve that more complicated aspect. And I love that as a reminder, and I'm constantly saying to myself, is this like the iPhone keyboard? Because if it is, I need to figure out how to correctly break through the feedback to be able to understand what actually revolutionizes the customer's workflow rather than just what's in front of them.
We train on this in our customer experience and our customer success team, because customers will come to us all the time with feature requests. And you're like, I don't actually want them to design the features. There's a reason they're not designing software. They're doing what they do. Tell me what problem they're trying to solve. And if you look back, the iPhone keyboard is a perfect example of, I'm trying to solve the problem of, I have this whole device, but I can only use screen on half of it. And Apple looked at that in a different way and said, well, if you're not using the keyboard 90% of, 95% of the time, why should it be on the device 100% of the time, taking up 50% of the real estate? And they thought about that problem differently. And I think if we can all come to the table, not with solutions, but with great problem definitions, let the experts solve the problems, I think a lot of things might accelerate in their development.
So, but that raises an interesting question then. How do you balance that listening to customer feedback versus painting something that they never had a way to even envision? How do you balance that?
Well, I'll give another example from the iPhone. It's one that most people probably have no recollection of, but in competing against BlackBerry and trying to get into corporate networks, one of the key features that BlackBerry had was full device encryption. So if you lost your BlackBerry, if you didn't have the PIN code, you couldn't unlock the device and then get access to the information on it. So it was a great security feature. So when we were in talking to Fortune 500 companies, all the IT administrators would say, we need full device encryption, we need PIN-based encryption. And they were telling how it was implemented on the BlackBerry. But what Apple did with the iPhone 3GS is they added a security chip, which was in the middle of when data was read or written from the flash memory, so that it was real-time encryption, not encryption where in the BlackBerry model, it was literally you put in your PIN, it decrypts, and then you can use your device. So it would take time. So Apple looked at the problem and they said, we're going to solve that problem. We're going to solve it in a very, very different way. And this is, I guess, early 2008, 2009 timeframe, where hardware-based encryption wasn't the standard, it was software-based encryption, which is what was done on the BlackBerry. Another example of just thinking about the problem in a totally different way. And when you look at the user experience, which is what Apple has always hung their hat on, the user experience we provided for enterprise business customers, having full device encryption and having it perform extremely well, amazing feature. No one was ever asking for hardware-based encryption. They wanted, so Apple solved the problem differently. That happens all the time.
So something you said there, and it's true like through and through, but I saw Steve Jobs, and it's relatively famous, but a guy comes up and he's talking about how Java, why doesn't Java solve, or explain to me how Java solves this specific problem. And I don't remember all the exact details, but he answers so gracefully to the way you're saying right now. And he says, if you start with customer experience and then build the solution from there, you're going to create a much bigger platform. If you start with a solution and then try to build the customer experience afterwards, you might have a point solution that sells and it does well enough, but it's never going to thrive. You have to start with the customer experience and then build the solution from there. Kind of to the same sentiment that you're talking about with the problem. Thanks, problem solvers.
Steve had another really good article that he posted on apple.com at one point called Thoughts on Flash. So if you remember, Flash was this browser-based runtime where you could run apps in the browser, and everyone was really enamored with Flash. The problem was it was extremely resource intensive, crushed the battery, and Apple was very against adding Flash to the iPhone for a very long time and didn't, and it was thought to be a mistake. So Steve published a article giving his thoughts on Flash, and he ended up being right. He was just really early in his thoughts. It's a great one to go back, maybe in the Internet Wayback Machine, and find that. But it's that type of thinking of saying, we understand you want this today. We understand also what might be coming and how we could solve that in a better way. Just be patient. And I think that proved itself in spades if you look at how the web exists today.
So when Apple removed the keyboard, it gave people a bigger screen, and that actually changed the whole definition from a phone to this media device, right? How did that shift in form factor change the way businesses or enterprises especially had to think about mobile experiences?
Well, I think it finally opened up mobile devices to more rich experience applications. So, you might have been able to get a customer list from a CRM on a mobile device before, but now you could build an app that truly interacted with the CRM and did something meaningful. The last few years at Apple, we built the mobility partner program, and we were looking for great apps, primarily for iPad, but also for iPhone, that gave that user experience that was true business productivity on these mobile touchscreens. And I think that's what it really unlocked, is more real estate to do real work on these devices. And you look at today's generation, some kids don't even have a computer. They literally live their life on their phone and do everything. I have 4 children. One's graduated from college, one's in college, two are in high school. They live on their phones and they literally do everything. My wife can't understand how they don't need a computer to do things. That's what that big screen opened up, was the ability to do real work on these devices wherever you happen to be.
I had an experience recently. It's a little of a tangent, but so I have a history, a background rather, of making movies, and that's why I have all this film related stuff behind me. And Final Cut Pro right here, that's Final Cut Pro Studio 2. This is from 2005 or maybe even earlier, 2004 when it was released, and that was profound software. I mean, at the time, it was the cream of the crop. Every professional was using this stuff. I was able to edit with my phone on CapCut a video that was, obviously not like, I'm not sitting down doing professional work and like editing the same way, but the fact that it had so much capability in my hand, it was the same. It was the same. And I know we got 20 years on that, but it's still, how do you fit in a tiny little device like this? How do you fit so much experience? And we've been able to do it. And it's paring down to being able to create these small little microcosms of the premium software like Final Cut, and then create something that's good enough for people in mass. And it's really incredible. My mind was blown when I was able to edit something reasonably on my phone. And I'm a late adopter to that. I know, like, that people have been doing it for years now, but I didn't. I did it this year.
Well, and just the fact that you can doesn't mean you want to, because I am always, especially if I've got to pull up my credit card or something like that, I always prefer to go to the computer where I've got the keyboard, I can point and click and all that. So maybe I need to modernize, but I sit there and type on that little tiny keyboard and make 20 mistakes in one sentence.
Well, I'll give you a real example of that. When we first created Engage, we created it as an iPad-only app. And the idea was, we're going to create an app to build beautiful interactive presentations on an iPad and no desktop required. And that was the pitch. Reality was, not everyone wanted to do that. So the number one request was, can I build them on my Mac or on my PC, and then can I use them on the iPad? Because the iPad was great for presenting one-to-one in the home, whatever your case was, but they wanted to build it on the computer. So we had to quickly say, all right, well, how are we going to not pivot, but add now desktop capabilities? Because you do want to meet people where they are. The whole concept of your podcast is incredible, because you want to provide the frictionless experience, right? So how can I make it frictionless for all users of the software? The designers want it to be where everything's at their fingertips, which is on their desktop computer or their laptop computer. The users of content in our world want it on their iPad, because they're walking into someone's home. They don't want to they want instant on, they want offline, they want all these other things. How do you still provide that frictionless experience? And I think building software, you have to think about all of those different user personas when delivering that solution, whether it's software or, heck, it could be dining experience or a clothing store. Like, you still want to make sure you provide that experience no matter what you're building.
It's very engaging because you think about, I mean, how many times have I had somebody come over to provide some type of quote for me, and they're using the iPad and they're showing it to me, and then it's clunky because they're in their file system, then they're using a PDF editor, and then they're doing this and then they're doing that. And, I'm sitting there, they can do whatever they want, but might as well have a paper and pen. And I just had a plumber actually come a month ago or so, and everything was pen and paper, just as classic as it could possibly get. And it was more seamless in that experience. But the experience that you're talking about, when it's actually truly streamlined inside a platform with which is purpose built for it, now you're creating frictionless experiences. Because what's different is that plumber that I'm talking about, pen and paper, he was literally over there and he was doing napkin math to be able to figure out how he's going to bill me. And I'm like, okay, so I'm just completely at the mercy of his judgment right now. And it was good because him and I were kind
his
of
seventh grade
bonding
math
and whatever.
skills. Like,
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So it totally understand where that flaw was, but I find that the most simpleton version to be better than the clunky version where you're trying to apply technology for somebody that doesn't feel like they know how to do it. Now sit right in the middle and provide a platform like Engage that allows you to be able to figure out how to click through, and it guides you through the process. And now you don't need somebody that's comfortable with the technology to be able to leverage it correctly. And that's a happy medium. So I definitely enjoy that.
the ultimate challenge is to bridge that gap, right? So you have this over here that works. It might not give you the most confidence in the number that he's providing you, but you know that it's real because you saw it happen in front of you. And then you have a piece of software that makes it look like magic. What does that do? Does that give you more confidence or less confidence? And how do you build a solution that can solve both, where you understand, you're aware, your questions are answered, and you have a level of trust and believability in the number that he put before you? Both are true. And how do you provide that experience so that the sales rep comes across confident and educated, and the consumer is very confident in the decision they're making because they understand the thing, whatever you're buying, and they see the value in the price that is presented? It's a very difficult needle to thread, and that's one of the things we do, is just try and help people with that experience.
So one of the things we talked about is that companies are quick to buy software, but often fail to put it to work to get successful adoption. What does the work actually look like when a company is trying to implement a new tool successfully?
We find, so we deal with all kinds of businesses, some that are extremely sophisticated with how they think and adopt technology, and some who literally order it on a whim and have a lot of hope. So we find that people who are most successful tie it to a success metric that they can measure in their business. So a lot of what we do with our software is we are integral into the sales process. So what we ask them to do is say, if you're going to implement what we do, what is the number, or what are the numbers in your business that we can track where they are today and where you want them to be, or where we can see a lift in that number? Is it close rate? Is it amount of time that you spend in the home? Is it the average deal size? Is it upsell motion? Is it adoption of financing? What are those things that if we improve how your sellers sell, you'll be able to say, we got it and we know? That's like the end game. The beginning, though, is the whole planning process. We find a lot of people don't put any thought into, or don't put enough thought. Maybe they put some, but they don't put enough thought into the beginning of the technology deployment. First thing they don't do is they forget to put stakeholders in place for key roles within the software deployment. Who's responsible for the IT or the technical side? In our world, we want to make sure there's someone responsible for the design. So marketing or someone that knows the brand should be involved as well. And then most importantly, who's training on it, and then measuring whether people are ready or not to use that software at the point of business. So many times, and we do this, we've done this ourselves. So I'm not just pointing fingers out, I'm pointing thumbs this way as well. We buy a piece of software. There's someone in the organization who thinks it's going to absolutely change the game for us. And we say, hey, this software is now available. Everybody go use it. And the people are like, well, I don't understand how it fits in my workflow. If I use this, it's going to disrupt this workflow. I do this and it makes me this much money. If I'm all of a sudden going to put this software in place in my sales process, I might not make the same money. So you have to really think about that third pillar, which is training and enablement and readiness, and the potential impact that it could have on the business if things don't go well.
Yeah, we see that sometimes at Blue Triangle where companies buy a solution, but they don't get the right teams on board, and then getting that adoption is a challenge. In your experience, where does that breakdown usually happen? Is it at the executive level, or is it failing to get the end users to buy in? What's like the success blueprint companies should think about?
Yes, and all, right? So a lot of times someone will see something. We do a lot of conferences, so we'll have the typical table at a conference. It's an industry conference, and we sell primarily into home improvement. So maybe the sales leader of the home improvement company is there, and he walks by and he sees what we do, and he's like, "Oh, my sales team would absolutely benefit from this." So he's like, "We're going to sign up," and they sign up. But he never asks the sales team their opinion. He never involved them with the process of designing the content that we're going to have them use within the platform. So all of a sudden on Monday morning at the sales meeting, they're like, "Hey, everybody, take out your iPads. Now you have engaged with a new presentation. Go out and sell." And the guys are like, "Wait a second, this is going to disrupt exactly what I do and my flow." And they don't think about that impact. So involving all stakeholders along the path is so important. A funny story from way back in the Palm days. We did a proof of concept with the California Highway Patrol. And the idea was, now you have to remember, this is like early 2000s. This is a long time ago. And we had Palm Pilots with a little app on it that they could scan a barcode, the license, and do a quick lookup. Now it's like table stakes, right? I think they can run your plates with a camera mounted to a car and check every car going by for registration in real time. This was way back when. All of the devices came back broken after the first 3 days of the pilot. Like, wow, that's really weird. What happened? The police officers put it under the back wheel of their car and drove over it because they didn't think it was going to actually do anything, because no one ever asked them if this was a problem they needed solved and if this solution that they had would actually work for them. So they were just revolting against the technology right from the beginning.
Holy cow.
I didn't know it was going to come down to like an actual act. I thought this was going to be, they left it under the wheel, and then they had to, they forgot.
They literally
broke
broke the devices, because if you don't involve the people who are actually impacted by it, then what do you expect? Now, I do think you need to expect a dip in productivity with any new technology, because there's a learning curve. There's a period of time. But the question is, how fast can you go out of the dip so you see an improvement in whatever the metric is, in our world, close rate or deal size or whatever that happens to be, and then you can see that the technology is actually making the difference. It's no different than hiring someone on your team. You're going to train them. You're going to enable them. You might expect that productivity in that role drops for a little bit, but eventually, if you've hired the right person, it's going to improve, and that's the whole reason you brought them on the team. Technology is no different.
So, Nick, I think my favorite retailer and I need therapy.
You and another website?
I've waited 5 seconds for it to load. 5. I could have gone and brewed coffee.
That's a quick coffee maker, first of all, but that sounds like a performance issue to me.
Yeah, instead of communicating, it just spun.
So you left, I'm sure. Classic abandonment issue due to latency.
Exactly. And that's why the Lowe's SRE team built site speed targets with Blue Triangle, so their users don't get ghosted by loading icons.
This is 5 steps to faster pages and fewer heartbreaks, all in the context of improved experience and improved revenue.
In fact, we turned it into a free playbook.
It's like a couples therapy for your digital experience, for you and your website, Chuck.
So be sure to grab the 5-step site speed target playbook at bluetriangle.com/playbook.
Because love is patient, but users aren't.
So, and you work with home improvement salespeople who might be, already closing at a 40% rate with their current methods. How do you convince someone who's already successful to adopt a new technology and change that behavior if they feel like, if the salesperson says, "Hey, I'm already getting a 40% close rate, why should I, how much more are you going to get me?"
The easiest answer on that is you tie it to their money. And you say, "Listen, I understand that you may have the dip at first, but we've seen, and we have data from hundreds and thousands of customers that show this, where if you give it time, you will build more confidence in the person you're selling to. And when you build more confidence, you will close more deals for higher volumes, for higher rates. And it will end up, now, does everyone get that? No. But at the same time, if you can get 2%, 3%, and you literally show that to them in their paycheck, a lot of times that will get them around. Also, if it's replacing a really broken process, a lot of people are really happy to use it. Because the example you gave earlier of the broken PDF and the file system to try and find it, and now you have everything you need at the touch of a button. It's beautiful, it's interactive, you're engaging with the prospect. It also depends not only on the close rate, but how much you improve the sales process and the flow and the visuals that you're presenting to the homeowner to build their confidence.
Yeah, and I can feel the effect you're talking about just from thinking about my past experience. This plumber that I'm talking about that was pen and paper and just quoting me napkin math, I got him from a referral from my builder who added 1,400 square feet to my house. And so I immensely trusted him. So because I trusted him, I trusted this plumber because he gave me the plumber. And therefore, no matter what he said, I was going to go forward with it. It was just a simple matter of trust. Now, if I didn't have that trust, that would have broken down real fast. Now, let me think about when I hired a plumber before this. And what did I end up having in front of me was a high-tech company, Mr. Rooter down here, owned by Neighborly. High-tech company that has, maybe even it is engaged, I don't know, but he has that whole platform and everything's lined out like online transaction and there's steps through it. And I'm just like, man, it's so organized. Like, I know he's not, pulling my chain on this. Like he's just simply going through, building what he needs, putting it into the system, and that provides so much confidence. And confidence is what it's all about, especially when we're talking about replacing pipes. And both of these times that I'm talking about, one was installing a hot water heater, and the other one is just replacing a whole bunch of copper pipes that were leaking. So that wasn't fun. But you know what? It's the same basic process and the same basic end result because I trusted them and I bought into the fact that I trusted them. That's what it's about. So how does Engage build that trust versus someone that's disorganized? I think the answer is obvious, but that's kind of what it boils down to.
Like any sales member wants to portray or build belief in the person they're selling to. And it doesn't matter what you're selling. It really doesn't. Now, when you're talking about high ticket items, which is the world we live in, it does raise the game because, if I'm going to propose a $35,000 roof to someone, it better solve the problem they have, which is a leak or a storm or whatever happened to the roof. And they have to believe that my company is going to get it done and not disrupt the rest of their world. How do I dispel all the myths about contractors? How do I dispel all the concerns they have about shoddy workmanship or experiences they may have had in the past? And a lot of people do that by building a brand and a reputation. They do it by wrapping their trucks. They do it by wearing very nice polos. They do it by putting booties on their shoes when they walk inside your home. They do it by presenting a proposal in a very well thought out way. And they do it by representing their brand with great materials at the table that help answer all the questions that every homeowner is inevitably going to have. That's how we help them.
Yeah, that's concept I talk about a lot is punching above your weight. In the Nick's example, that plumber was probably an independent plumber, and that's what he looked like. He looked like the guy with the truck who's been doing this for 20 years sort of thing, versus Mr. Rooter that's part of a bigger brand, has that look and feel. And so that guy, even if he's a local franchisee, and he's no bigger than the other guy, he looks like he's a much more legitimate. And if you're having that decision, replace your copper pipes, which could go really badly, which one are you going to pick? Then that professionalism, that punching above their weight is kind of that extra element, I would think.
Well, and guess what? Both can do the job. The question is which one, when you're signing on that paper, do you have more confidence is actually going to do it the right way the first time so that you can have the problem solved that you have.
And if it weren't for the builder referral, it easily would have gone towards another Mr. Rooter for me in that decision. But because, and this company also worked on the plumbing that was added to the addition for us, because I had already had a existing relationship and built trust, and it's a referral with which is somebody I immensely trust. Like it's a slam dunk decision for me. Not everybody has that. In fact, most people don't have that.
confidence, belief, trust, all those words make a lot of sense and are really, really important when you're writing checks that are 5 figures.
Have you been able to tie the elevating that design and the interactivity of the presentation? Can you actually tie that to impact on the bottom line when you go and work with a customer?
Absolutely. We actually built a great little calculator into our sales presentation to help people see the value of what we do. For example, if someone is closing at currently a 35% rate and we know how many appointments they run, what their average deal size is, and if we had a lift on average deal size or number of appointments, we could even impact the number of appointments they run in a week. What if I could get you to one more appointment because you're spending 30 minutes less and everybody's home every time? Like, that is a metric. And we have all these metrics that we built into this little calculator, and we ask the customer, what are you doing today? Appointments they run, deal sizes, average ticket, all that stuff. And we literally just use it against real world case studies that we've built. And we say, well, if you have the same outcome as Nick's construction, you would see a 4-point lift in your close rate, which at your current volume would mean $4 million more on your business or $400,000 more. All we want to see is, can we provide a return on investment to our customers that the 10x is what they're going to spend on us in order to improve their business? Because in this world that we operate in, the name of the game is lead conversion. So back in the days of COVID, leads for home improvement companies were plentiful. People had backlogs for 9 to 12 months or more. In today's world, leads are more scarce. They're still there, but the lead conversion is the metric of the day. And if we can help you convert those leads even just a little more, it's not only what they get from their bottom line of selling that business, it's also the return on their ad spend that they're getting because those leads are so valuable if they can convert them. So there's lots of pieces of the puzzle that can be impacted in terms of the profitability of a business when leads are converted at a faster rate.
And is that something when you're doing your QBRs and your renewal and stuff, are you able to document that and show them before and after the actual quantification of value?
For some customers are a little tighter to the vest with their numbers, but we do ask the question because at the end of the day, I don't want someone using our software that's not finding value in it. If it's not returning value, just like any employee, if they're not returning value to the company, you should probably let them go and go find a place to be valuable. I feel the same way. So we'll never pressure anybody, but we want them to look at the metric that they said when they signed on. Is it close rate? Is it deal size? Is it time in home? Is it lead conversion? What are the metrics, and are we helping you move them? And if not, you believe in the platform, let's make some changes. Let's improve the content. Let's train the sales team. Let's whatever it is that would help move that needle. Because the amazing thing is, and some of these businesses are massive, we have multiple billion-dollar home improvement companies on our platform. But even the ones that are 10 million, if we can move the needle 10%, that's another $1 million into their business for growth, for back office support, for profit that they may not have had in the past.
Something that you said, talking about not wanting customers that aren't finding value. Everyone thinks of word of mouth as being exclusively positive, but it's not. If you have an employee that has used a software and then another employee's coming in to introduce it and says, "Hey, look at this really cool thing that I'm gonna revolutionize the way we work. It's so amazing and great." And then this one employee that had a bad experience because it was poorly implemented, not because it's a bad software, then says, "Oh yeah, we used that. It was crap. Did nothing for us. In fact, it hurt all of our workflows and caused us to lose a bunch of money and a bunch of deals." Oh, okay. Well, I guess we'll do something else then, and then they move on. And bad word of mouth really will shut down a lot of what you don't even see in front of you. So word of mouth isn't always good.
It's also hard to track that because those aren't the ones that show up on the churn report. Is that, Jim in IT had a bad experience at 3 companies ago. And, it's funny, we actually track, there's a lot of movement in the home improvement industry. So people move from, company to company. One of our lead sources that we track is past customer, meaning they were a customer somewhere else and then went to a new place and are now, either starting their own company or are now leading sales at that company. it's a pretty big part of our pipeline, which is great. It's a great testament to they had a great experience somewhere else, but it's definitely something to watch, because the opposite is also true, that we may be getting some negatives and some closed loss deals without even knowing that it was a bad experience from somewhere else.
So thinking back on your Apple days and now to today with Engage, was there like one big learning you got out of the Apple experience that sort of becomes a filter for all what you're doing today?
There's a lot. I value tremendously the time that I got to spend at Apple. It was 8 incredible years. I was there during a very productive growth time of Apple. And there was a lot of takeaways from product and understanding that the customer doesn't always have the same thought of design and the thought of or appreciation for excellence. And I think one of the big things I took away is could we build a platform in what we're doing with Engage that mimics some of that simplicity, one, and then also that surprise and delight that when they use it, it becomes an instant part of them wanting to use it. You asked me a question earlier, like how do you get sales reps to adopt it? You make it irresistible to them. And if it's irresistible to them, and they can see from the moment they open the app that this could be a game changer for them, adoption is simple. But when you apply old thinking to design, or you apply the things that we talked about earlier in the conversation around doing it the way somebody else says you should because that's how everyone else does it, we try to approach problems in a very different way. So if I brought anything, that's definitely one thing, is to look at the problems that our customers bring us and say, how could we solve that in a unique way that provides tremendous value to the company, to the sales rep in the field, and ultimately to the end customer who's going to have an interaction with that software. The other thing is around the team. You need, like I was blessed to be a part of some great teams at Apple, and I've brought that in my leadership here to build the best team that we could possibly build and hold standards that are very high that everyone wants to hold, right? We have 3 core values that we stand by. We're value focused, we're problem solvers, and we're customer first. And if you are not embodying those, it's not going to be a fit, which is fine. I'll help you find a place somewhere else. I got a nice network of people that maybe you'll fit somewhere else. So the second part is the team. And only with a great team do you enable that first part, which is a great customer experience.
So, Dean, what's one widely held belief about frictionless digital experiences that you think people get wrong and fundamentally disagree with?
I think a widely held belief is that technology is approachable by all. And I think, a lot of people build technology and think that everyone can just use it because it's that simple. And I think Apple has done a really good job of making products that are really easy to use and provide that surprise and delight over and over and over again. And I understand why not everyone's in on the Apple bandwagon or in on Apple technology, and some people love other technology. But I think a widely held belief is that I'm going to tie this to the current trend of AI, because everyone I talk to not everyone, a lot of people I talk to are afraid of technology change, and AI is just another example of that. And I think the widely held belief is that when new technology comes, it's going to disrupt and ruin everything that's come before it. And I think history has shown us that that's simply not true. It just makes space for new things to be possible. And the widely held belief is that new technology is so disruptive. And while that can be true, the space that it opens for new ideas and new thinking and new possibilities, that's what to latch onto. And if you live in what it's going to disrupt, I agree, it's going to be tough for you. But if you live in what it makes possible, then you have the world ahead of you. AI rewards the curious, and the curious are the people who win the most.
It's interesting. I like it a lot. One thing that is very similar, the curious, rewards the curious. So let's stay within a building vibe coding, if you will. I have an executive, I have a junior developer, I have a principal developer, and I have a salesperson, all building platforms right in front of me right now with Claude. And then sharing that platform out as if it's going to revolutionize. I am philosophically trying to understand what's going to happen late stage with this, because you have somebody with immense influence and little technical, the executive. You have somebody with huge ambitions and super dangerous right out of school, the junior dev. You have somebody stuck in his ways, the senior dev. And then you have a sales guy who's just trying to make sure somebody buys this shit. Like, what do you get as an outcome out of that? I don't know, but I'm vastly interested in understanding. Like, we are in a really weird crossroad, and I'm excited to see what happens. But my guess is what we're going to get is we're going to get whatever the executive says, or the sales guy gets somebody to actually pay for, and then the junior dev is going to have to refine it, and then the senior dev is going to code review it. I don't know. Maybe I'm just making stuff up and trivializing it, but that's how I think of it.
If people are stuck in their ways, I think you're absolutely right. If you have a culture of innovation and a culture of collaboration, a culture of feedback, I think a company can thrive in an environment like that. We're living the same truth right now, Nick. We had a hackathon a couple of weeks ago with our engineering team, and it was amazing what they were able to produce in a very short amount of time. And my challenge to our director of product and engineering was, okay, what is actually going to ship of those 8 projects that you guys created in 3 days? What's real that we can ship, and what is the time frame to ship it? Because I'm not letting you spend 4 days, 3.5 days out, not building our core product and then not have an outcome that is beneficial for our company and our customers. And then my next question was, when do we have the company-wide hackathon to solve our business problems that we believe could be solved by technology? And that's the next up task for us. A lot of people are doing things individually, and what I believe it does, and what it's done for me personally, I've vibe coded 5 apps, is it's made me look at the business in a different way. And only one of them actually is being used, and it's being used every day by leadership to look at data in a way that we couldn't visualize data in the past. The other 4 are gone because we realized that another tool could solve that problem much cheaper, easier to maintain. We weren't going to be responsible. There's other customers that are informing how that product gets built that we could never imagine. I think it's important for companies to start building a framework for what it is today for them and how they're going to accept this and what the process is to vet these solutions that get created, so that there is a level of review, and it's not a hierarchy that decides it, but it's not a committee either, but it's a framework that you put it through and you say, does this solve a business problem? How well does it solve the business problem? And how sustainable is it? It's no different than an employee. You hire the employee to do a job. Can this software that someone vibe coded on Sunday afternoon while watching an NFL football game actually solve a problem, give a return on investment? Just what I was talking about earlier in the conversation. Put it through a framework so that the hierarchy doesn't win.
Yeah, I just read a post in the last couple of weeks from somebody on LinkedIn, the whole SaaSpocalypse. Yeah, the whole SaaSpocalypse. This guy said, hey, we ended up just using AI to build our own CRM and kicked out Salesforce. I'm like, I'm wondering how they're going to feel about that in a year, and having all the connectivity to all the other things. There's got to be some happy medium.
It's going to be interesting how it all plays out, for sure. There's a long concert we're about to attend.
So I think what's going to happen is there's already a concept right now of build versus buy. And the bigger the company, the more likely they are to build instead of buy. And so I think it just brings that level down. So smaller companies can build instead of buy. And that's really what's going to occur. Now, what even happens at the biggest, most cash-rich companies is the build process generally is slower to keep up than the buy process. Generally. Not always. You might overly invest in this one specific thing because that's part of your core being or whatever, but that's how I see it. I think the build versus buy conversation just happens at smaller companies now.
We've seen this play out. I'll give you a historical reference. So when apps were, everyone needs an app. Remember this? App Store comes out and everyone needs an app. I need an app for my business. Do you have an app? Do you have an app? And they're like, well, what do we do? Do we build an internal development team or do we outsource? And there was an amazing company called Black Pixel, which built some of the most amazing iOS apps in the world. You can go look them up. They work for some of the most major brands. Well, Black Pixel scaled. And then all of a sudden, the democratization of creating iPhone apps happened, and a lot of people learned Xcode and Swift, was a simpler language, and the tools got better, and you didn't have to have the expertise of someone like Black Pixel. And we actually have some Black Pixel guys working for us now. Like, they're amazingly talented people, but the economics changed. That's what this is doing. I built a dashboard app that instead of buying one, but I don't think that's the long term for what I'm going to do. Maybe it is for that particular software, but like the people who build their own CRMs, I'm really interested to see how that works for them. CRMs, it's a whole different ballgame. I'll be interested to see how that plays out.
Well, Dean, this has been a great conversation. What's the best way for people to connect with you if they want to keep talking?
Yeah, I'm pretty active on Instagram, actually. So Dean Curtis 23 on Instagram, both professional and personal stuff that I'm out there talking about technology, lacrosse. I'm a big lacrosse guy. So it's always fun to interact with people on my Instagram. So at Dean Curtis 23. And then our company website is engage.io, INGAGE.io. Happy to connect with you or grab a demo. Would love to meet anybody who's out here. I also have if you hit me up on Instagram and just send me the message Frictionless, I have a way to rate your tech stack. So if you're interested in that and understanding like, hey, are we doing it well or not? I built this little widget that takes you through a series of questions, say, are we doing okay? Or maybe there's some things that need help. And I'm not the guy to solve all those problems for you, but at least you could identify, are we going well, or are we building a digital junk drawer of stuff to run our company?
Well, if you enjoyed this episode, subscribe, leave a review, and be sure to share it with colleagues. And you can always connect with Nick and me on LinkedIn for more insights on reducing digital friction. I am at Chuck Moxley.
And I'm at In Paladino.